Well, it's a fine Thursday morning in Lee County, New Mexico, and we have our next episode of One Poem for our listeners. Today, we are discussing church-going. Pete, would you please introduce the author and the poem?
Thank you, Jack. Church-going is by Philip Larkin, and I believe it was first published in some journal in 1954, and then it was in Larkin's second book, The Less Deceived, which came out in 1955, and I have a copy of that book with me right now. And here's the poem just to take a glance at it if people can see.
I might have a little bit of trouble reading that because we're kind of dark here, but that's okay.
That's okay, just to see the shape of it on the page. And it's 7 9-line stanzas, so 63 lines in all, and there is a rhyme scheme, and I'm just going to, as I speak, I'm going to try to, well, I can't enlarge this on the phone. Oh, I can't do it, so it's no, I don't think people could see it probably.
Yeah, that's challenging. It doesn't focus really well.
Okay, I'll just simply say it. I thought about this 9-line stanza, and I said, well, what are each of those 9 lines composed of? And I would say interlaced couplets.
Triplets.
Interlaced triplets. Yeah. 3-line stanzas strung together. And the rhyme scheme for any given stanza is ABA, BCA, DCD. So C is the letter that interlaces the middle and the last, and A is interlaced with the middle one. It's pretty interesting. I'm not real big on abstractions, but I couldn't help but follow what Larkin did here. And one of the key strengths of the poem is that he follows this rhyme pattern, this pattern of end rhyme, in some cases full rhyme, in some cases partial or slight rhyme, and he does it through all 9 times 7 is 63, all 63 lines. Not a syllable wasted.
Why don't you go ahead and give us a read, and let's hear it.
It's long, but what the heck? Because numerous people who will watch this video, I hope, and listen to it, are familiar with this poem. But also, perhaps many will not be, and it's really one of the great poems of the latter part of the 20th century in English, Church-Going by Philip Larkin. Once I am sure there's nothing going on, I step inside, letting the door thud shut. Another church, matting, seats, and stone, and little books, sprawlings of flowers cut for Sunday, brownish now, some brass and stuff up at the holy end, the small neat organ, in a tense, musty, unignorable silence, brewed God knows how long. Hatless, I take off my cycle clips in awkward reverence, move forward, run my hand around the font. From where I stand, the roof looks almost new. Cleaned or restored? Someone would know. I don't. Mounting the lectern, I peruse a few hectoring large-scale verses and pronounce, "Here endeth," much more loudly than I'd meant. The echoes snigger briefly. Back at the door, I sign the book, donate an Irish 6 pence, reflect the place was not reflect the place was not worth stopping for, yet stop I did. In fact, I often do, and always end much at a loss like this, wondering what to look for, wondering too, when churches fall completely out of use, what we shall turn them into, if we shall keep a few cathedrals chronically on show, their parchment, plate, and picks in locked cases, and let the rest rent-free to rain and sheep. Shall we avoid them as unlucky places, or after dark, will dubious women come to make their children touch a particular stone, pick simples for a cancer, or on some advised night see walking a dead one? Power of some sort or other will go on, in games and riddles seemingly at random, but superstition, like belief, must die. And what remains when disbelief has gone? Grass, weedy pavement, brambles, buttress, sky, a shape less recognizable each week, a purpose more obscure. I wonder who will be the last, the very last, to seek this place for what it was. One of the crew that tap and jot and know what Rudolphs were. Some ruined bibber, randy for antique, or Christmas addict, counting on a whiff of gowns and bands and organ pipes and myrrh, or will he be my representative, bored, uninformed, knowing the ghostly silt dispersed, yet tending to this cross of ground through suburb shrub because it held upsplit so long, and equally what since is found only in separation, marriage and birth and death, and the thoughts of these for which was built the special shell. For, though I've no idea what this accrued Froutsy barn is worth, it pleases me to stand in silence here, a serious house on serious earth it is, in whose blent air all our compulsions meet and are recognized and robed as destinies, and that much never can be obsolete, since someone will forever be surprising the hunger in himself to be more curious, more serious, and gravitating with it to this ground which, he once heard, was proper to grow wise in, if only that so many dead lie round. Well, there it is. And reading it simply revitalizes my appreciation for the whole poem, all of the details that Larkin has included, the imagery I'm thinking of in particular. Nothing's perfect, and if there is a weak link in this poem, ironically, it would be at one of the most important places at the very end, and that's where Larkin says, so many dead lie around. Well, we can assume they're lying underground, but the faint resonance of bodies lying in a field or whatever is still there. But I'm sure I'm not sure, but I'm thinking that at one point he might have considered the word underground, dead underground, and then went to round instead. But as said, one of the things that makes the poem great is the regularity of its end rhymes. Some of them are full rhymes, and others are what we call slant. And right in the first four lines here, line 2, shut, rhymes with line 4, cut. That's a full rhyme, and line 1 ends with going on, the syllable on, the one syllable, and line 3 ends with stone. This is what we call the slant or partial rhyme. And Larkin really displays some genius with it. How so? None of it sounds forced. All of it sounds natural. And by sounding forced, I mean it doesn't sound rhyme directed, like he ended line 3 on stone just to get the partial rhyme, but that rather it fits in with the sense or meaning of what he's saying. So more sense or idea directed rather than sound directed,
Right.
Is the term applicable for all of the rhymes in this poem.
Well, the narration, again, is conversational. And it's like you say, you don't notice the rhyme. The rhyme is not the central feature of the poem. The central feature is the story. The central theme about it is talking about the church and the church building and whether or not churches or really faith or belief will exist in the future. And what happens to people's superstitions, what happens to people's beliefs as the churches fall away. That's the central point to the story, I think. And the rhyme enhances how he does the rhythm of the piece, enhances the storytelling. Am I anywhere close in that perspective?
Very much so. It's I guess the rhyme and the fact that this poem is not free verse, but it's rather in what they call iambic pentameter.
Yeah, it's structured.
Yeah, 5 stressed syllables per line. But those two things make it sound like poetry as opposed to prose. But one thing I think that is very central is the speaker's attitude, because how he says what he says is so central to the poem. Another church. Well, why are you here? You sound bored. You almost sound cynical, Mr. Speaker, in the poem. But I think he, the word I have in my notes, I think is undercuts that cynicism with the donation of the Irish sixpence. And, he's not giving us any expository information about where exactly he is, but with that Irish sixpence, I would say, must be someplace out in a rural part of Ireland. Catholic Church, Protestant Church, we never know, because it's not absolutely central to the poem. The central thing is it is a church.
And that brings up a question for me, I think. As a reader, it seems like to understand the poem, you actually have to go out looking at some of the elements described within the church, such as the rood and the pyx.
The what?
The PYX, the pyx.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not familiar with Anglican or Catholic or even Episcopalian services, those words you're not familiar with, and you have to go looking them up. You have to go looking up the structure of the church. He mentions the churches, especially old churches, that derive, say, from the Renaissance era or even earlier from the medieval era were actually constructed on a cross pattern. So the building itself would look like a cross.
Right.
You'd have the entrance on the east side as you walk in, and you're walking along the long shaft of the building back towards the nave, and then you have cross sections that could be storage or something like that, or where the priest would come out of, or where they would have the confessionals. Those would be in cross corridors. It would form an X essentially at where the two would intersect. Mm-hmm. And of course, it may not be apparent there because you have doors and partitions separating the areas. But if looking from above, you have a cross that is depicted in many Catholic or in many denominational depictions of the crucifixion of Jesus.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit yesterday, Jack and I, about some of the religious references in the poem, and one of them is gowns. Well, it may not be exclusively religious, but gowns and bands, which has got a hyphen around the end there, right, as one term. And do you want to?
Well, the thing about it is that, again, when you're looking at Christianity in general, from its formation, and this could go for even the Greeks or Romans pantheon, but more strongly associated with Christianity, is you get this aspect of people dress in robes. They dress up in gowns, all right? There's a priestly office, okay, that people are ordained or who are ordained to serve in. Then you go to a more secular viewpoint in which you have courts established by the king or by the monarch. Typically, you don't have republics back in medieval era. So you have the monarch who establishes courts. They wear robes, they wear gowns, okay? That's their formal attire, all right? And then, you're going from the clergy to the courts, and then you go to academia. Early churches were places of learning. They were places where people learned how to read. They were places where people developed reasoning and rhetoric. That's where our current collegiate system stems from, is actually from the early churches that developed colleges and universities. They have a direct tie and direct link to teaching and learning and academia. What do we have in academia? You have gowns, you have sashes, you have hoods, as part of the regalia of having successfully completed a course of study. And it's formal. There's a formality to it, and there's an authority to it. There's an authority assigned to people who have completed their education, who go on to teach others, who sit in chairs of authority to say, this is what we should teach, this is what what students should learn. And you go to our legal system, this is what the laws are, this is how we enforce the laws. And again, it all stems from this idea of there's a proper order to the world, there's a proper order to life, and there are these institutions, where it be the church or the government or education, there's a role and a purpose there to maintain order. And then what we see in the poem is that part of that order is breaking down. In fact, the foundation of the order is starting to break down, because even back in the 1950s, you started seeing a falling away from church attendance.
Yeah, a good point. And if I can interject here, Jack, at the end of stanza 2, he says, I sign the book, donate an Irish sixpence, reflect the place was not worth stopping for, yet stop I did. In fact, I often do. How different the poem would have been without that inversion of the subject and the verb at the beginning of the third stanza. Right. Had he said, yet I did stop, in fact, I often do. No. The I there at the end of that little clause, yet stop I did, keeps the accent on the I, and one thing I wanted to address is the theme of solitariness or solitude in the poem. This to me is a poem that says it's okay to be alone. You can be alone and still, quote unquote, have a life if you're experiencing something, whatever it could be. You could be away from this table we're sitting across each other from, and out by the abandoned air base and exploring some ruin out there. You know, they're to undercut the blasé attitude of the speaker, there's this curiosity that's reflected in just what he shows and what he tells, and it's just something to think about, you know.
Well, the part of it is, yes, there's solitude, and it's a solitary experience. And again, he keeps coming back to the church. No, he's gone into several. No, the implication is that he's gone into several different churches. No, while he's out bike riding. No, on occasion he comes to this church because it's on his way, and he stops by. It's and it's not worth it. It wasn't worth it, but for some reason he keeps coming back because there's a search going on. He is seeking for meaning. He's seeking for understanding. And he's drawn to this place, even though it's empty, even though it's solitary, it's quiet.
You know, and it's almost, maybe not almost, let's just say it is, an understanding gotten by touch.
Yes.
I mean, he's the immediacy of things. Okay, I peruse a few hectoring large-scale verses, and we talked a little bit about hectoring, and pronounce here endeth much more loudly than I'd meant. Okay, auditory image extended with the echoes snigger briefly. Back at the door, I signed the book. There, he's donating the sixpence. Maybe dropping them into a slot,
an offering box.
but he doesn't have to say that. And then their parchment plate and PYX, PYX.
Yes.
In locked cases. Put things in your poem. Readers can hold on to things, and then you've got that image of that's certainly conjured or suggested of the roof half gone at least, and let the place rent free to rain and sheep. Should we avoid them as unlucky places? And then he gets into he gets into all kinds of things. One is superstition, the hope of dubious women come to make their children touch a particular stone, picks simples for a cancer, counting on the church as a place to save, or on some advised night see not a dead one walking, but walking a dead one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, again there, that's sort of it's a fleeting moment of drama in the poem, but how different it would be had Philip Larkin or the speaker in Philip Larkin's poem said, on some advised night see a dead one walking. No. Keep the dead one at the end for emphasis, just like you did for Yet Stop I Did, that inverted syntax.
Right. Because it catches the ear.
Yeah. To me, I've often thought of this poem when I was out walking. It's a bit haunting that way, but not in a depressing way, but just I don't know, sparking some kind of curiosity, seeing the big picture. The cyclist stopping, removing the cycle clips. And he doesn't even say, I don't even think he says he's on a bicycle here,
no,
but he mentions the
but
detail.
It's implied. It's implied.
Yeah, with the cycle clips. Yeah, hatless I take off my cycle clips in awkward reverence. It just is a poem you read and it will come back to you perhaps at a time that you least expect it. But one of Larkin's best poems, certainly. Is there anything else we want to... Well, if anyone who is looking or listening is from outside the United States, especially, that word Randy, which can have a sexual connotation here, is included in the 5th stanza, but it's some room bibber, Randy for antique, or and here again to think about the diction in the poem, or Christmas addict counting on a whiff of gowns and bands. There's that slightly cynical, irreverent, sarcastic diction, which to my mind is undercut by what he says about churches in general.
Right. Again, we see the narrator having that attitude, but also being drawn. It's implied that he's being drawn back to this place on more than one occasion. Obviously, and it's implied that it's along his, a regular route that he rides. You look into the implications of what's not said, of what's not written down, and you can piece together elements of the story that become apparent once you know. Again, this is upon the reader to put the puzzle together. And I think this is a poem that it takes multiple readings to tease out those aspects of the person who's speaking and to tease out what he's looking for. Because, again, you don't stop at a church unless you're necessarily looking for something. You may have curiosity, but you're still wanting to know stuff. You want to know stuff so that you have a more complete picture, whether it's about the world or about yourself. And I think right here, the speaker in the poem is actually, he's relating his own existence to the church, if you will. And he's questioning what happens when this church goes away. Well, you got to tease it out. Well, you won't be stopping at it no more. If they lock the doors, you won't be going inside no more. And what does that do to the way that you question the world? What does that do to how you perceive your external environment? And what does that say about you internally? What do you develop internally because of all this other stuff that's outside of you? See, little things that you can tease out that are not strictly written down, we're not told, we're not shown, but there's a puzzle there that you have to work through, and it leaves questions for the reader about how their own perceptions are shaped by the poem itself.
Yeah, and like the church that the poem is about, the poem itself is a special shell. So he calls the church this special shell, and then he says, a serious house on serious earth it is, and there's this phrase toward the end, someone will forever be surprising a hunger in himself to be more serious.
Mm-hmm.
Provocative.
Yes.
You know? And which he heard in gravitating this ground, which he once heard, was proper to grow wise in. Yeah. And that goes back to what you were saying about the church being a place for teaching,
Right.
too. But yeah, what a poem by Philip Larkin.
Mm-hmm. We're at the time for our last words. So, what last words would you say about this poem?
This poem's about being in and out of a church. The inside and outside are described and commented on. The speaker is alone. But there's a heck of a lot more to it, and there's no substitute for getting a hold of the poem and reading it yourself. This is a poem that anyone with access to Google, I believe, could see on a cell phone, on a tablet. You accessed the poem in its correct format, didn't you, Jack?
Close to it, yeah. And again, that was the poetryhour.com, I think, is why I got it off of.
You don't want to, well, I would hope that you'd want to see the poem. Why? Because I think it would do anybody good to read it, because it's brilliantly written, and might spark curiosity for reading more poetry, but to see it as it is originally formatted is the best way to do it. And if you're going to read any poem from the latter part of the 20th century, this would certainly be one of the good ones to read. You know.
Well, thank you, Pete. We're at the end of our time today. We went a little bit long. Thank you, Lee County, for listening. Until next time, this is Lee County Pod, one poem.